Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your attendance on the July 16, 2020 KRT board meeting. First thing we need to do is to have a roll call and for Doug to acknowledge there's some folks there at the board office and also an attendance over the phone, and so we can get an accounting of who's here. Can you do that, Doug?
Yeah, from what I can see online and what's here, we have Miss Arthur present in the room, Mr. Bailey present in the room, Mr. Tolliver present in the room, Mr. Hicks present in the room. We have Mr. Sutphin on the phone. We have Miss Holmes on the phone. We have Mr. Goldman on the phone. Mr. Snodgrass on the phone. Miss Gaynor on the phone, and and obviously Attorney Beth Amandus is on the phone. The two that I have don't know if they're here yet or on the phone. I think one of them just logged in. Who is 0702?
That's Dave Casebold.
Okay, Mayor Casebold is with us. I don't have Joe Caval yet. So other than Joe Caval, that's it. So, and present from staff on the phone are Travis, Scott, and Clyde, in the room. Brett Meadows is in the room, and then we have other staff, Mick and Chris Baldwin, calling in by phone.
Okay. And does that account for everybody, Doug?
That accounts for everybody but Mr. Koval.
Okay, but I mean unknown callers.
Oh, right now no one's logged on to the YouTube. We'll check how many people are from the general public are here.
And as usual, at the end of the meeting, before we adjourn, Travis will be able to tell us if there's any public comments or questions through email, right?
Right, and we have one person on YouTube, and if that person would have a question, send an email to kvrta@rideonkrt.com. It should be at the bottom of the page if you have a question that you want us to address during the meeting.
Okay. First thing we'll do is the minutes from the last meeting. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at those. They were mailed out, and I received mine last week. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes from the June board meeting? And if there aren't, is there a motion for approval?
Mr. Bailey's made a motion, and Mr. Hicks has seconded in the room.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Any further discussion on the meeting minutes? Approval, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Doug, on this number 2 on the voting rights resolution, you want to go over a quick summary of what that involves?
Correct. As you are familiar, that have been on the board for a while, and I think everybody's been on through this process at least once. Every year, we are required to do a voting rights resolution, and the voting rights resolution is based on the contributions of. Okay. Sorry. It outlines, based on the contribution by each municipality represented and the county represented on the board, the number of votes. Traditionally, we've always done one person, one vote, but there is a method that we could actually count votes if we had to. In the origin, all the entities except for the city of Charleston, the county, have contributed $500, and you get a vote for each $500. The city of Charleston, when KRT was formed, donated $5,000, which then gave them 10 votes that they split amongst their 3 members. And the county, because they set the levy rate, gets credit for the levy tax collections. And that's the only thing that changes each year, is the county's allotment of votes. And based on this, now there's a total of 473,300 votes that are split amongst the municipalities, the county, and the city. And the only change, again, is the addition of the levy monies received in the last fiscal year have been added in to create this year's voting resolution. We are required by law to adopt this at the July meeting before we conduct any other business.
Hey, Doug, I have a question about this actually. Our minutes usually say that there are only 3 members from the county, and this voting right resolution says there are 4.
Right. We do have a 4th county member who has been ill and hasn't
Okay.
been able to attend. Manford Holland is and he's been a long time and was president of the board for a while.
Okay.
And that's why. So, just for those listening online, if only one county member is here, that one county member has all the county votes. If one city member is here, they have all the city votes. And the way the smaller municipalities are protected is they control whether we have a quorum or not. So that's the way that works. So, Todd, if you could call for a motion.
So we'll need a motion to adopt the voting rights resolution, which we do every year. Is there a motion for that?
Ms. Arthur's moved it, and Eric has seconded it.
Hey, well, okay. Motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion regarding the voting rights resolution? Hearing all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Hey, Doug, before we go on, is there some way to improve the audio for those in attendance? Because I cannot hear anything that's happening other than.
Why don't we'll try to move the mic back farther than that.
Is that the microphone that catches you?
Yeah. So I'll try to talk louder. Are you picking me up still?
I still hear you fine. I'm just wondering if we might need to have a second microphone if possible so that each end of the table can be covered well. Not today, obviously, but next time.
Yeah, we'll look into that. And
Okay.
and I will relay, and if someone does have a question, please, speak up to try to do this. Yeah, this is the first time we've had both, we've kind of done mixed live and obviously remotely, so we have to work through some kinks maybe. Let's see. So the next item of office is the election of officers. Every year you guys elect officers. We elect a president, a vice president, and secretary treasurer. For our current officers are Mr. Goldman as president, Ms. Holmes is vice president, and Eric Hicks is secretary treasurer of the board. So with that, are there any nominations or anything, any discussion, or how do you want to handle it, Todd?
Leave it the same.
Do we just want to make a motion to retain the same people if they're interested in doing so, or?
The question here, does the board want to retain the existing membership, and if so, there would be somebody that would make a motion to do that.
I would like to
move we
make that
retain
motion.
the same membership.
Okay,
This is Bob Steppen. I'll make that motion.
all right.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got multiple motions on that. Mr. Koval is now online with us also for those who may not have picked up his voice there. We do have a motion and a second for the election of the existing officers retaining their position. Is there any further discussion on that matter?
The only thing I'd just point out, are Kim and Eric willing to fulfill theirs? I'll speak up and say that I'm willing to continue if they are.
I'm willing to continue in this capacity.
I also. All right.
So there's been no mutiny by the board officers, so.
Well, there's
We
a
have
lot of
motion.
other members speaking up wanting to
Yeah.
continue as
Yeah.
it was.
Maybe that's a better way to state it. So there is a motion on the table to retain the existing officers. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or giving a thumbs up online.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I think that's unanimous. All those opposed? Okay, it is unanimous. Congratulations, for being reelected. The next item I discussed with Beth before we came online is the oath of office that you have, that I emailed you a copy of. I can read the oath of office, and with the new remote Zoom pandemic notarization rules. It's my understanding that if you all recite your oath of office, for the ones that aren't here, and that we could then notarize those as approved. So if we want to do it all together, if you want to get it, or if not, when you come in at the next meeting, you can do the oath of office in front of our notary and we can notarize it at that point. So it's completely up to you, Todd, how you want to proceed with that.
Beth, is this permitted to have a verbal recitation of the oath of office and then have it notarized for someone who's not even present?
The remote notarization, there's an emergency rule. I just sent it to Doug that permits it just during this pandemic, notarizations to happen remotely. So we would still need the signatures on the documents from the people who are taking the oath, but then Scott could do the notarization piece remotely, having seen them and knowing their identity, having seen them or heard them take the oath of office.
So we could drop the paper off signed and that would be okay.
Right, correct.
Well, then, Doug, that's probably going to suit a lot of people better than trying to find notaries if people don't have access to notaries. I'm just not sure who all has easy access.
That suits me because I live very close.
Okay.
And if you sign it, if you do it today and sign it, and what I'll do is I'll go around to each person and ask them, you have the oath of office, you're going to sign it, you mail it in to us, then we'll notarize it. Would that be probably the best way to do it, Beth?
I think that works just fine, since just noting that Scott Menifee, the notary, is there in the room and is witnessing this, he can do the notarization upon receiving the signatures.
All right. Mr. Sutphin?
Doug.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I emailed you copies of my oath and the conflict statement this morning, but do you need the originals?
If you could mail me just for my file, yes. And I did receive your email right before the meeting, so thank you for doing that. All right, so I'm going to start with Mr. Koval. You have a copy of the oath of office in front of you?
Yes.
And you're willing to abide by those things and sign that at this point?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sutphin, the same question to you?
Yes.
All righty. Mr. Casebolt?
Doug, I'm looking through your emails here. I don't see a copy of that.
Okay, it
But
would have
yes,
been on the email
I
I
agree
sent you
to it.
last Thursday. It was in the board packet. It was scanned as part of the board packet. So I'll come back to you, okay? Ms. Holmes?
Yeah, I got my. Okay. Yeah, okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
All right, thank you. Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And let's see, Mr. Goldman?
Yes, but I'm going to probably I'll have mine notarized and sent in.
Okay. Mr. White?
Yes.
All righty. And then Mr. Snodgrass is remote too.
Yes. So help me God.
There you go. Okay, great. And then the other ones in the room are signing theirs, and Scott actually is witnessing those signatures, so we're good on the oath of office. That takes us to the conflict of interest statement. And again, this is something you guys should fill out, those in the rooms. This is just stating you can fill them out, and that at the next time you're in the building, this isn't something we could do online, I don't think. Just because everybody's is going to be different. So the next time you're in the building, then sign it. Hopefully at the next board meeting, we'll be able to all get together, and then we'll notarize it at that. It is not a requirement of state law to provide this. It's something we do for our auditors, and also the county commission has asked us to do that. So it's something that we do up and above our normal statutory requirements. So that takes care of all that. Todd, any other questions about those items?
I don't think so.
Okay, great.
I mean, just that everybody knows that those conflict of interest statements need to be sent in or brought to a meeting in the future.
Great. And so that takes us to Scott and the financial statements, and I'll let him slide over.
Auditors, they're kind of working remotely. They came in one day, but we've been going back and forth with a bunch of emails. So a couple adjustments are done here at year end for the accruals. And we're still waiting on the PEIA, that OPEB liability. That audit's not done typically until beginning of August. We have to pick up some numbers on it, on our financials. But other than that, I think everything's going okay. Got a lot more questions, which we anticipated because they're doing a lot more testing. But so far, so good with everything. But if you look there on the schedules, on Schedule 2, the Statement of Revenue and Expenses, for the month of June, operating revenues came in $129,801, and operating expenses $1,263,378. On the Schedule 3 for the comparative analysis for the whole year activity, for fiscal year 20 operating revenue, $1,870,002 compared to the previous year's $2,229,213. And then on the expense side, we got $12,679,604 compared to $12,802,324. On Schedule 4 with the 4-week moving totals, large negative still. The revenue 43.39 is decreasing a little bit, 33%. And on the ridership 38.33.29.24. So I mean, we do have a little slight tick in the right direction, as you can see, even going back to those other months. It's a slow climb. Again, we talked about doubtful, when we're going to reach those past numbers, if we will. But it is slowly inching back to what we're used to. On the daily fare box revenue there on 4B, average has been about 19,000. And typically for the those weeks we look at 25,000 to 28,000. For our final year, the ridership counts there on Schedule 4C for the month of June, 91,656 compared to the previous year, 129,364, a decrease of 36,000 or 27%. And while we're looking at that, you can look at the year-to-date numbers, where we had the 1,409,000 compared to the 1.6 previous one. So we're down right at 200,000 riders, 12%. For D, just the use of the day pass still, at 68%. No real changes with it. Schedule 5, just using statistics with the numbers. Average passenger a day was 3,564 compared to the previous June's 4,641. And for the month, 93,009 compared to the 116,613. And the final levy stuff, what came in there on Schedule 6, $159,066. So for the year, we were down 4.25%. And this year, we anticipate, where we had that decrease last year, ideally we're going to hold steady this year. But that's it. Unless somebody's got any questions.
I want to point out a couple things before we do a vote on that. As you know, overall, the passenger fares were down a little bit over $200,000 year to date. Of course, we lost $100,000 on a contract last July, 7 days into the year of revenue, and the rest is the COVID, the decreases in that we have experienced since the middle of March. So this year is really hard. Todd and I were talking yesterday. We really can't compare it to anything. The ridership was actually, it wasn't increasing, but it was holding steady through the first part of the year. We had some positive months, we had some negative months, and it's an unfortunate year, and it's going to take us a while to get back to be honest, I don't see us back to normal service for another several months in terms of the ridership and the public attitudes and things like that and getting on. So I think this is kind of going to be a trend for a while. We have built up some ridership. Most of our riders are riders of need, not riders of choice. It's the riders of choice that give us the good years compared to ridership numbers of different years. So with that, is there any questions on the finances? Okay, we will attach them to the board packet and to the minutes and file them for future use. There are no invoices that were not budgeted over $5,000 for us to approve. Going into old business, the self-insurance report, it's basically pretty contained. Jake was able to, and Jacob and the insurance company settled several claims towards the end of the year and the end of the May and early June. So we've gotten a lot of those off the books. CAT operations report, just as with the buses, CAT ridership is down, but it is ticking back up a little bit because as doctor's office open, more people are getting out, things like that. Which takes us to our project updates, if there's no questions on those. We didn't have any charters or public service. We haven't had any since February. The transit mall discussion. There's an attachment from ZMM that was sent out in your board packet last week. It is, as you're aware, the committee met with 5 firms. We had 5 firms express interest to design the transit mall. The committee met with all 5, had presentations from all 5. They were ranked and scored. At the last board meeting, we had the listing, and we reported to you that we are to the point now of negotiating a contract. We have met with the top ranked firm by phone a couple times, in person a couple times, and we have negotiated a contract on the second version that they will perform all the duties required to complete the project, prepare the bidding documents and everything for a fee of $165,000. That also includes all the site engineering, such as ground borings, testing of soils, because we're going to be replacing apparently half the road on Laidley Street. So we need to make sure our subsurfaces are good, so that will remain. So this is in line with the percentages of a project this size based on the national average. And I would recommend that the board adopt this contract or the board authorize me to enter into the contract for $165,000 for ZMM, and they're using a subcontractor, GAI, for their engineering services.
So moved. I'll make that motion.
All right, I have a motion. Yes, okay. Yes, sir. Is that Bob? Okay, we have a motion.
Me, but I'll make it if you don't know who it is.
Okay, no, okay. Well, Mr. Hicks has made a motion here. Mr. Tolliver has seconded. Any discussion on that motion or questions on the process going forward? Just
all GMM's doing is overseeing the project. They're not. We haven't awarded any contract or anything at this point.
Well, this is the contract for the architectural and engineering services to design the whole project. This is not the contract to bid it or to build it. That will be at a future date. They'll prepare all those documents working with us. Clyde sent me yesterday the boilerplate to go with this contract, but there's additional boilerplate that would go with the final contract that we bid out. So this is just for the architectural and engineering and design services for the new transit center downtown.
Well, what is A&E service contract?
A&E is architectural and engineering. We followed the state code 5G1, which is state processing. That's just what they call the services.
Thank you very much.
And Doug, can you just tell everybody the source of funds to pay for this?
Yeah. The source of fund comes out of our capital reserve account. We started putting away money in 2012, I believe, to build the fund to remodel the transit mall. and we've set aside funds every year to that. We have a bank of $2 million that is including for the entire construction, putting up the amenities, and also the design service. So we're looking at about anywhere from around $1.5 to $1.8 million construction budget. There is hopefully a contingency in there, and hopefully we won't spend it all until we find out what the road improvements are entailing. That is the big unknown. We're going to be building a building that's approximately 1,200 to 1,400 square feet, of which the city of Charleston has agreed. We haven't signed the papers yet. They are leasing us the land the transit mall will be on, and they will be paying a per square foot cost for some of the building that will be used by them for the purpose of storage of equipment for the new park that's being built, and also for public restrooms that we will not have to maintain. Any other questions about the project? Okay, we have a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor of authorizing me to award a contract to ZMM for the amount of $165,000 for A&E services, please advise.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I will meet with them probably tomorrow to execute the agreement, and we're going to hit the road running. Our timeline is to hopefully have construction documents ready to go this fall, late fall, early winter, go out to bid, and then hopefully we'll be turning dirt starting next March or April and getting this project going. We've been, the original design and concept was presented to the public and approved in 2015, so it's been a long time, and we worked on it for a couple of years prior to that. So it's been a long time coming, and we're looking forward to it. The next item on the agenda is COVID-19 and discussion and approval of any COVID-related items. As we talked, as mentioned earlier in the finances, obviously COVID's had a tremendous effect on our finances. We have, starting on July 5th, mandated our passengers to wear masks while riding, and also our drivers to wear masks while they're operating the bus. And then the next week, the governor issued he issued the order starting on that time, about the same time as that. So that process has gone, I will say, somewhat smooth. We have given out over 4,500 masks to passengers, but we still have passengers showing up. Those were cloth reusable masks. We've ordered additional masks, surgical masks, cheaper masks to give out, and we have 6,000 that are going to be delivered next week because we're starting to run out of masks to distribute to the passengers. But we're working on that. We're trying to keep our supplies, cleaning supplies up. I reported to you that the National Guard stopped the additional cleanings that we were getting at the end of June. But we are still, every week, have a contractor come in and sanitize all the buses. Plus, they're being cleaned and wiped down and sanitized nightly by our staffs here. So we're doing everything we can. Last month, you guys renewed for the month of July the pandemic pet premium to our employees of $4 an hour. That expires on July 31st. We're doing it on a month-to-month basis now, unless the board opts to extend it a longer period of time. But I do have the paperwork ready to extend it another month, or I could extend it another 2 months. But if we prefer to do it on a month-to-month basis, we do. And I do recommend that we do that. We have received some of our drivers back, but we're still short drivers. So the people that are working are really going above and beyond the call, and still working a lot of overtime, and we appreciate that. We're still operating Saturday service levels, and we are posting a markup to return to full service levels next week. But to be honest, I don't see that happening anytime within the next 5 or 6 weeks. It takes 3 weeks to run the markup, but unless we have a huge influx of drivers coming back, we're actually going out trying to hire drivers now. We're going to be running an ad in the paper. We just don't have the bodies to go back to full service at this point.
How many drivers are not working, or because of this pandemic, or are we just short drivers, period, or we just don't have drivers that don't want to work during this pandemic?
We had a couple vacancies just normally,
Okay.
but we had a driver rate of 77
Mm-hmm.
active drivers. That was down to 61 at one time.
What's 15? Okay.
And right now we're at about, I think 65. I think we've got
65
4.
out of 77. 77
Yeah.
is kind of full staff.
Yeah, 77. We budget 80 drivers.
Okay.
That would be our ideal number.
Okay.
So we're down, but we have 3 drivers on long-term disability or on disability.
Okay.
Then we have about 9 off on COVID related, and
Okay.
then we have another one that has been on long-term family medical leave to care for an elderly
Okay.
parent.
And what's been the stance of everyone regarding people that are off on COVID? Just to let them go ahead and be off, or are they just off without pay?
Well, for 12 weeks, they were paid 66% of the wages by the law of the CARES Act,
Okay.
and that has expired. So right now, they're not being paid, and basically their absences are they're
Are they unexcused or excused?
well, I don't want to use either of those words.
Okay.
But basically, they're to the point where they can be off with COVID. They're not getting paid, but they're not accruing benefits. So next year, when somebody that has those 12 weeks that they were compensated, they accrued benefits during those 12 weeks.
Okay.
But now that into June 30th. If it goes, let's say to October 30th, July, August, September, and October, they would have 4 months of their vacation program for next year. So
Okay.
they're not being paid. It varies upon the person you talk to. We have some that they have family members drawing the unemployment with the extra premium, and they basically said, we're making enough money, I'm not coming back to work because of COVID, because we're getting enough money at home anyway. So it's difficult to say, and obviously Congress is looking at extending some of those benefits possibly, in the next couple weeks. The extra unemployment money expires July 26th if it's not extended. So at that point, we might see a couple of them come back because now all of a sudden their other family member isn't drawing that extra money.
Okay.
So we're just wait and see.
Hey, Doug, is EFMLA concluded at this point?
The paid part of it is.
Some people didn't go off at the very beginning. We still have a handful that are still receiving benefits where they didn't start till later.
Right.
But it's a 12-week period whenever they started.
Did you hear that, Todd?
Yes, but they're essentially an excused absence if they have someone in the household under 17, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Most of the people have a family issue. I mean, most of them were up front where a spouse may have health conditions where they're just fearful of it. But where you have a child 17 or under at home, it was irrelevant. They all of them in that situation could use that to continue to pay and to qualify for it.
Okay.
And we've had about everybody in that situation do it. The first person went off on April 1st. So, that person 12 weeks from there, if you didn't go off until like May 1st, your 12-week period would start there. And again, the way the contractual basis is with the if you're compensated, you accrue benefits. If you're not compensated, you don't.
And right now, school schedule for September 8th probably is going to get pushed back again. Would we be able to fully staff and have full operations by then? Because that would kind of kick off what would be the normal work schedule for a lot of people if the kids are back in school.
I would hope so, but Todd, I seriously doubt it. I think it might be October. I met with the president of the union the other day, and we were discussing it, and we both, it may be our next mandatory posted markup in October before we can go back to full service, and I'm not even sure if we could do that now. The markup we are posting, we're posting a one that we can implement. When a markup process works, it takes 3 weeks to post it and get it run. So we've already done all the pre-work, and now we'll run it. It won't have an effective date, and it could go in, but if I have it ready and already signed, I can put it in effect any Sunday moving forward. You know, so we're just trying to, we did this with the emergency Saturday service markup. We posted it early in the process, but we didn't implement it until late May. We posted it in March and ran it in March, but we didn't implement it till late May. We're required to put 3 markups out a year, February, June, and October, no matter what. These are extra markups we're putting in there and just having ready so that we won't be, oh, we're back to full staff, and then take us 3 weeks to put the service out.
Well, what's going to be different in October than September? I mean, will you be able to
Hopefully
find
Medora's vaccine will be out. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. This could be going on for a long time. The question is, if the benefits aren't extended, are people going to start coming back to work because they need the money?
It seems to me like that's the big thing, is what happens here in the next couple of weeks, because that'll probably, I mean, if the benefits aren't extended or they're reduced significantly, that might bring 4, 5, 6 people back to work right there.
You had 2 or 3 people who had to have procedures done, and until everything got opened back up, they're supposed to be done within the next week or so. So as long as the rehab recovery time is reasonable, then you know that 2 or 3 is enough to get you out of the Saturday service. But somebody else could pop off too.
Right.
But we don't have any word of that right now. But I mean, we're close on a couple, I think.
In other words, we need to wait and see what happens over the next 2 weeks, because something's going to be done. We just don't know at what level or what it's going to be.
Right. When it comes to service, I would love to report to you that we're ready to go back to full service or modified full service, but we're not there.
Okay.
You know, so that's where we are on that. Other than that, any other COVID issues, we still have to talk about the pandemic pay premium. So I would recommend that the board continue the pandemic pay premium for another month, take us through the end of July, or I'm sorry, the end of August. And then we would look at where we go in September at the August board meeting is my recommendation to the board, but of course that is your decision to do that.
Did you determine the monthly cost on that, Doug?
The monthly cost, we figured out $130,000 for the 4 months, 3 months. It's about $40,000, $30,000 to $40,000 a month.
Okay. I just want to put it in perspective of our budget.
It'd be 160 times 150. So
divided by 3, or by 3. So it's 50,000 a month.
Not more than that.
Okay.
No.
Well, but the thing is, we can afford it, so it makes sense.
But we did get the extra pandemic money paid for this very purpose.
I make a motion that we continue it on a month to. I make a motion that we continue the pandemic or COVID-19 pay, and we assess it on a month-to-month basis.
I'll second.
Okay, and we have a motion from Mr. Hicks and a second from Ms. Arthur, and Scott just ran a calculator. It costs us about $25,000 a month.
Oh, that's not easy.
Okay.
And I'm sorry I forgot to look that number up. You'd asked me to do that. So there's a motion on the table to do that. All those in favor say aye, or give me a thumbs up if I can see you.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I've told the union that I was going to ask them to do that. Mr. Sayre and I will get together and sign the document prior to the end of the month to make sure that it happens. But thank you very much. Just a real quick, the next item on the agenda is our Montgomery Amtrak station. The work is finally done. I met Mr. White in Montgomery. We did a site walkthrough, had a few little changes we made at the end. We've got all that work completed. We put up our first of our new bus stop signs in Montgomery, replaced the other signs. And Mr. White, if you would like to make any comments or anything about it, but I wanted to report we finally finished that project.
It looks great, and I'd like to thank you.
That moved great. When you're coming in live, we've got some pictures here that we can show you of the area. It really did turn out nice. This was supposed to be done in April of 2019, but Amtrak just finished up last month, and we got it. We were waiting to get in after them to do the final part of our piece of it. So it's been on hold for a long time. But everybody was great that we worked with in Montgomery, and thanks to the police chief and Mr. White and the mayor for allowing us to move the stop in the meantime. And we've actually got a new permanent stop there, and we still serve that stop also. So that worked out well. So
But
now
Doug, it looks great.
Okay, great, thank you. Now moving into new business, we do not need to do item A since we did not change officers, so we do not have to adopt new banking resolutions.
I do need Kim though, when we updated something mid-year, switching some things here. At some point, I still need your signature, Kim, on one of the resolutions to get things updated, okay?
Kim, did you hear that? We have a form from where something changed in the mid-year that
When Denny retired.
when Denny retired that we need you to sign, and
Okay.
it's just we haven't met in person since that happened.
Okay.
Or I guess
Well,
we have. Since
She wasn't
this
there at the
change,
last meeting,
you weren't
yeah.
there at the last meeting that we had that after this change was made. There had to be something else changed.
Okay, can you scan it and send it to me and I can sign it and mail it back to you?
Yeah, I think I can try that. I'll
Okay.
get a hold of you. I'll send that out later today then.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay, and Eric, I have some things for you to sign that we've adopted in other meetings. Okay, the next thing is the review and approval of the bus modem replacement project, and just to bring you back up to starting last year, they started to transition away from 3G service nationwide, and after December 31st, the modems on our buses this year, December 31st, 2020, will no longer work at all. The ones that we had on the buses, if they're replaced, we couldn't upgrade them or service them. We'd had to replace them with new ones. So we've been putting together a project, and we included it in our capital grant. We opened bids on that Monday, Clyde?
Yes.
Opened bids on Monday. I wasn't in the office that day. We reviewed the bids on Tuesday. 4 of us scored the bids. I sent you an attachment with this information last night. We had 3 people submit proposals. One proposal wasn't submitted until after the deadline. And I will say this, it wasn't complete with all the pricing information anyway. And it also was the highest of the 3, at least when it came to the equipment. 2 companies, RCN Technologies and Source Inc., did submit mostly complete packages. The Source did not include the coverage maps, but listed Verizon. The other one did have the coverage maps. The prices were very similar. We have a minimum buy of 55 units. We also bid out for TTA, who's in this project, and once we award, they'll be off this project for an additional 31 minimum units, right? 30, 31. And then we had a total maximum units we could buy. So the numbers you see in front of you are for the IBR 1700, which is the new modem that would even be available if we got 5G here and everything. It has 4 ports, so instead of having multiple modems in the bus, we'd have one modem that can operate 4 different wireless devices. Also provide us where we can put internet on the buses, correct? Yes. So we'll be able to offer internet on all our buses, as well as take care of our route match system and our automatic passenger count system and our camera system. And so it fulfills all our needs. The unit price for a 5-year contract of the Cradle Point Management Program was $1,500 by one, $1,535 by 2 by one. I'm sorry, $1,532, and the other one was $1,550. And both of them have service plans. RCI or RCN was about $950 more expensive. Basically, it was on their install. They were cheaper for the equipment, but they were a little bit higher on their install. And antenna by $13, but overall they didn't have some other add-on charges at the others. So the price is basically the same. We did put aside $100,000 in our new grant to do this project. So we have grant funds to cover $100,000 of the cost. The other 18 would have to come out of our capital reserve account, which we had set aside money for this also, because at one time we didn't know if we were going to write a grant for it. So we had set aside money. Staff is recommending that we award it to RCN. They did have the most complete bag package. They are $954 higher. But when we talked to the references, they've done Seattle Metro. We talked to Charleston, South Carolina. They've done that. We spoke to some transit properties. They have an excellent reputation of getting the work in and getting it done in time. We do have a time limit on this, and they've agreed that they can meet our time limit. And so our recommendation is to award to RCN. It's a completely clean bid, though it's $900 more. There are no technical issues that we have to deal with in the process where we'd be amending purchasing requirements.
Do we have a history with either of these companies, Doug? And is there any difference on warranties?
Warranties are the same. That's the 5-year program thing or the 5-year commitment to them. Both of them are that. Both these companies are under 7 years old, correct, Clyde? If I remember reading it right.
I probably have to go back to that.
And I know one of them's been around 6 years, but this is kind of their specialty because this is kind of a new industry that's developed as bus technology is developed and things like that. Seattle Metro is huge. You know. So, I'm sorry, Todd, I overspoke you.
Does it integrate well with Route Match, or do they need to integrate, or are there any hiccups along the way with other softwares that we already run?
Route Match had an opportunity to bid on this. They only put in for one thing. Route Match originally, I can tell you last year, could not interface with them, but they are. Travis would probably a better answer that.
So at first, Route Match hadn't messed with this router before. They used the IBR 900, but we sent them an IBR 1700 for them to test their software with, to integrate all their equipment with. So whenever we install these, we'll have Route Match come on site and then connect Route Match's other equipment to the router and make sure it's functional. That's why we set the due date, the limit, for an earlier date than December, so we can make sure Route Match is also compatible and working before 3G is completely sunsetted.
Okay.
So there may be an additional charge for Route Match to be up here a week to do that. We'll have to, at that point. But they have, like as Travis said, I guess had purchased the unit, sent it down there to make sure that they could test it and make sure it worked. And from all indications, they've said that it will work with our equipment.
And it was Cradle Point. They just sent them one.
Yeah, Cradle Point sent it to them. So the company did while we were out prior to us just going to bid.
Will we be able to install parental controls to control the content that people will be able to access?
Yes.
If we use Wi-Fi?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have filtering. We'll also have data caps for like how much data a certain device can use per session, and then we might even go further and do like a per month basis. But yeah, we have content filtering controls in place right now on the one on the trolley, and then we can lock it down even further if we need to.
So if somebody wanted a joyride on the bus, they couldn't get on there for 4 hours and stream Netflix and watch a movie?
Correct.
Okay. If somebody did, would it affect our cost because they've run up against data limits?
If there was not a data cap per device, yes, they essentially could, but that's the purpose of the data cap, to get around that on each device. So, if I wanted to ride on a bus all day and watch Netflix, I would lose my data cap probably in 30 minutes.
Okay. And then Frontier won't throttle down the speed as we get close to data caps, will they?
No one will do that now.
Actually, this will be cellular based, and right?
Yeah.
It would be either Verizon We also, and we may not use Verizon because as a first responder or being classified in the first responder area, we're able for First USA,
So
FirstNet from AT&T.
with FirstNet, I spoke with FirstNet last night, and they don't offer anything that does public Wi-Fi. If you
Okay.
offer public Wi-Fi to anyone, they won't do it. But AT&T is the same thing.
Okay, so that's changed through that. So never mind, forget what I said. So that's where we are. That's our recommendation. Clyde, do you have anything to add?
No.
Clyde doesn't have anything to add. So
Doug, question, just clarification. So it's $950 more, but when you look at the bid packet that's out, the scoring would have us, RCN was more responsive and in the scoring process was viewed as a better option.
that is correct because they did not, number one, they didn't completely comply with the regulations. Obviously, RCN got a lower score on price because they had the cheapest price, and that you base it off that. So you know, I mean, Source got the best price, and RCN's price was reduced, or score was reduced. But yeah, RCN, based on 4 people scoring, was the preferred provider.
So that's justification for spending extra money is my bottom line question.
That is, and along with the fact that, you know, technically Source's bid was not complete. It could be considered a minor waive, and we could waive that, but technically it wasn't complete bid. Had it been $100,000 difference, we would consider that a minor deviation and waive it. But for $1,000, we're getting, we think, based on the recommendations, a solid provider, and it's $1,000 more on $17,000 project. It's not even 1%. So, with that, if there's a motion, Eric Hicks has made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any other discussion? All right. With that, all those in favor vote aye.
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 All those opposed, likewise. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Got anything else, guys? I do want to tell you next month, I let Todd know last night, I will not be attending the board meeting. I'll be out of town. I have to go help my son move into a new house. The Navy transferred him 2 months after he bought another house, so now he has to go to a whole other area, and he just closed on a house. He closes that day, and we're moving in. So Scott will be handling the August meeting, and if anybody, and for those of you who remember Jim Meeker, who was a driver for us for 31 years, he retired in 2008. He then worked 8 years in our parts room and as a farebox puller and worked part-time for us. He passed away Monday night or Tuesday night, and he was a great guy. He had gone to Duke University, self-taught himself 5 or 6 languages. Just a joy to be around and a great ambassador for this company for years. His wife Connie worked for Assured Partners and actually was our liaison to help us with our claims through that, and just wanted to publicly express our condolences to her and let you know that some of you I know never met Joe or Jim, but he was a great guy. And with that, unless the board has something, I don't have anything else.
Sounds good.
Hey, Doug. I was going to ask, how are things going with the voting on the festival bus wrap?
Oh, they announced the winner, and if you go to I forgot about that. I'm sorry. Thank you for bringing it up. The last day of festival, they announced the winner. It was the one that had the West Virginia mountains and the hiker, and we have the design. They just did a photo of the design yesterday to put it out. But if you go to the festival website and look up Art Bus, you could do that. We're also working on another project with the city and Charleston Alliance and University of Charleston. I don't know if you've noticed the planters, the flower planters that are on a couple of the parking buildings downtown. they are applying for a State Farm grant to do more, to help fund the art bus moving forward. It's included along with that and some other beautification projects. So maybe we'll be getting a grant from State Farm next year to help absorb some of those costs. As you recall, the City of Charleston, UC, the Festival Commission, and KRT were funding the cost of the art bus this year. And we included it in the budget for next year. So it's good. It really looks good. It's interesting. I was surprised it wasn't my first choice, but it was in my top 2. So it's good. Anything else, Todd?
I don't think so.
I
Appreciate
promised
everybody's.
you I'd be out of here by 10, so I appreciate it. I
Everybody-
appreciate. Okay.
I think we're adjourned. Everybody have a great day.
All right. Take
Thank
care
you.
now. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stay
You
safe.
too, Tom. Bye.
Is this a Zoom meeting or is it to go at Go meeting?
It's Zoom.
Because the thing is, I don't have the link to the Zoom meeting.